DW Africa Link.
History was made at the start of this week. Fela Kuti, Nigeria's legendary musician and the pioneering force behind the Afrobeat sound, was awarded the Grammy's Lifetime Achievement Award. He is the first African to receive this prestigious honor since its establishment over 6 decades ago. For many, this recognition is long overdue for a musical giant whose influence knows no borders.
Well, I would say I'm surprised because it's been long. Everybody has been hearing of Fela for a very long time, but he's getting the award now. I feel so proud of him, to be honest, and I'm happy. I think that's just it in one word. I'm really happy for him.
I think it is long overdue. That is one word for it. Albeit it's a good thing. It is a big win for Nigeria.
But what does this groundbreaking honor mean for Fela's enduring legacy and for the future of Africa's Afrobeats movement? Stay with us to learn more. I am Adwoa Tenkoramaa Domena, and you're welcome to Africa Link, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
Finally, Fela Anikulapo Kuti received the recognition his contribution to music deserves. His name alone tells a story. Anikulapo means he who carries death in his pouch. And Fela lived up to that name. He was a fearless musician and civil rights activist who introduced the Afrobeat sound, not just to Nigeria, but to the entire world. Yet, his legacy transcends sound. Fela was a relentless political activist who weaponized his music to challenge military dictatorship, corruption, poor governance, and the lack of basic amenities in Nigeria. The price, over 200 arrests during his 58-year lifetime. Today, Fela has been honored with the Grammy's Lifetime Achievement Award, coming on the heels of his album Zombie being inducted in the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2025. So what does this milestone mean for Fela's legacy, the Afrobeats industry, and Nigeria as a whole? Joining me for this discussion is Adegboyega Oyedele, also known as AfroLogic, a renowned Afrobeat musical and cultural curator. We also have DW's Olisa Chukwumah in Lagos. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you so much for your time. Ade, I would like to begin with you. Where does your nickname come from? AfroLogic, where does it come from?
It's a long one. I was always associated with Afrobeat right from younger days, even DJing in England. And later on in the 90s, we created a group here in Lagos. It was called Africa Society. And I introduced some of them to the music of DJ Logic from Japan. And one day, some of them said, why don't you just shorten all your endeavors and just become AfroLogic? And I thought it was a joke, but it's no longer a joke, as time would tell.
So you've had the experience, not just hearing him sing as a young Nigerian, but you also experienced some of the people who worked with him. How would you describe Fela as a musician and as an activist?
Fela was a voice for Africa and the people of Africa. And for me particularly, there was a big closer because I grew up with a lot of the Kuti clan, whether the Anikulapo Kutis, who changed their names after their father, Femi Yeni, or the Ransom Kutis, who did not change their names, you know. And where we grew up, in a suburb of Lagos, Surulere, Fela often came there like every fortnight on Sundays because he had to come for dinner because the wife of his elder brother, the late Professor Olikoye Kuti, mandated that Fela had to always come for Sunday dinner. You know, the thing many people didn't know about the Kutis is that in Yoruba parlance, they were ajebotas, which means that they were very posh, despite what Fela showed the world, that they were very posh. And, you know, they were all mixed cast, so to say. So many people didn't really know that. And for example, Fela really loved chocolate and ice cream.
That's quite interesting to know. You know, I'm so glad we have somebody like you on this podcast because we get to see all the nuances, not just how the world perceived him, not just how the Afrobeat world perceived him, but personally as well. We get to, you know, learn a bit, one or two things about him that the world may not know. So thank you for bringing out the chocolate and the ice cream. I am a lover of chocolate and ice cream as well, if you care to know. Yeah, but yes, this win, this Grammy's Lifetime Achievement Award, some say it's long overdue. In fact, I have seen a couple of comments that say that why do we always honor our best when they are no more? To that, what would you say?
Well, no, I think for those that knew, Fela already had his honors over the decades. But we all know that the Grammys representing the Western musical industry is another kettle of fish altogether, and you know, lots of politics in there. Fela never signed for any of the global record labels. A lot of people know that, but some people might not know that, so they know now. He refused. He was given many offers, but he always refused to sign with any of the major powers because he felt that home was where the heart and the activism was, and where the message would be stronger if it comes from home. So I think because of that, because I think Fela should have gotten a Grammy anyway while he was alive. I mean, the records he sold at times when there was no social media, no internet, the whole world knows he was selling millions of records all over. The whole world knows that. But I think because he strongly refused to be linked with the industry, that couldn't come. And the industry has now recognized that, look, this man was far larger than life and larger than all of us and larger than the industry, as it were. And we just have to make him the first African to win this award. You know, that's what I just think.
Mm. Now, thank you so much, Ade. I'll come back to you shortly. But Olisa, let me come to you. How has the reaction been? How have Nigerians received this news? I mean, we've seen President Bola Tinubu tweet about it or put on X about it. But the whole country, how are they receiving this news?
It's been a celebration for Nigerians and also relief that this, many say it's been long overdue, that this has finally come. There's been online debates recently about Afrobeat legacy and who is greater than who. Fela's name was somehow gotten into that mix. So people just felt, you know, this Grammy Award, Lifetime Achievement for Fela, the first African to ever get it, that's it. It basically just quietens all that talk and recognition and acknowledgement for one of Africa's greats. Some people compare Fela to, they say Fela for them is what Elvis Presley means to rock and roll and the Western world. That Fela is the African icon, the Nigerian music icon. So this is much welcome, even if they might say a bit later than they expected, but it's much welcome.
So AfroLogic, let me come to you. In 2023, we had the Grammys Africa Regional Director describe Afrobeats, you know, as probably one of the Africa's biggest cultural exports right now. At the time, streams for Afrobeats had grown somewhere beyond 500 to 550%. What would you say is the standing of Afrobeats as a genre of music currently in global music?
Oh, yeah. I think long before social media, I mean, judging from Fela's legacy, original Afrobeat never needed the internet world for the message to spread. And long before the social media world, I mean, the Afrobeat bands grew up all over the world. And in fact, in the past 20 years, there are more Afrobeat bands in many of the major cities of the world than in Lagos itself, the home of Afrobeat. Take New York with Antibalas, Zozo Afrobeat, then go to Chicago, the Chicago Afrobeat Project, go to Tokyo, Jaribu Afrobeat Orchestra, go to Chile, New and Afrobeat. So it transcended the social media already before now. And it will never be judged by streams, really. It will never be. It will always be judged by the influence of the music, the message, and the energy. And I think that's where the power of original Afrobeat comes from, and the legacy that Fela left.
That's quite profound to say that. I am also looking at the younger generation. I mean, at the time, Fela changed his music slightly from high life as it was known, to more Afrocentric, talking about the things around him. The people at the time, you could say that they lived his music. He was talking about their everyday life. He was talking about bad roads, no electricity, no water, poor governance, and all of that. Would you say that the legacy he has left still resonates with the younger people of today? Or is just the old people who really lived his time that are remembering Fela?
No, it is definite that the legacy he left will be enduring forever, because even Fela himself, like you mentioned, there were many phases of his music and his messages. The early 60s were all steeped into high life, like most of Africa, really, at that point, And then the 70s, after the failed surgeon in America, and coming back, the last album really of the first phase probably was the 1969 Los Angeles sessions, which was the main thing he got out of the failed contract, because he had to apparently record that album to pay some fees. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to leave America, because that was the condition the promoter gave. And in that album was probably the first sign of what was coming in the 70s. That was a Viva Africa, Viva Nigeria, where he was talking not only about the Nigerian Civil War, but about, wars and the effects of wars, and talking about unity. That was the first sign that things were changing. And of course, by the time he came back home and then changed the name of the band to Africa 70, it was very clear that it was a new phase and a new dawn. And that was when the transition from everyday stories in music, about girls, about clubs, about, everything changed suddenly. Like tunes like Lady, which talked about bleaching, Africans and bleaching, and then from Lady on to You Can't Gag Me, Jeon Koku, and then the album with Ginger Baker and Tony Allen live, which had Black Man's Cry. Which was a throwback to the effects of slavery. And this was a new Fela, and it grew on until legendary tunes like Zombie, Upside Down, where it was now clear that this was a new Fela. And all the peoples grew with that change, because a lot of the political events happening around Africa about that time were resonating with the same changes that Fela was going through, and the observations in the observations in his music. And so people grew along with the new message.
Olisa, in hindsight, I mean, the question I asked Fela, I'll still ask you for Nigerian residents who perhaps are too young to know the exact legacy of Fela. How is he being remembered?
Well, that's a quite a layered one for the young ones, especially for the Gen Z, especially for people who were not even born when Fela died, or when Fela's music was already big in Nigeria and Africa, and even globally. They remember him as clearly a musically key figure, because many of them get to experience Fela through the modern Afrobeats that is now popular, the commercial Afrobeats, the Burna Boys, the Whiskey, the Davidos. So for them, discovering that these their sounds, even many of them their lyrics, can be quoted directly from Fela is mind blowing for them. It's actually mind blowing that such a figure was so musically gifted that the country, the Afrobeats that Nigeria is selling now globally, is a direct resonance, commercial resonance, artistic resonance from Fela. For them, it's just amazing. It's mind blowing for them. They wish that it was in their time, but I think they feel much more blessed that, oh, okay, at least they have something to look back on. That this music that we're enjoying now called Afrobeats, somebody in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s already did it well and did it big.
Well, we also want to know, is there an inkling, or is there a feeling that the legacy of Fela in Afrobeat music is being passed on to this generation of Afrobeat singers?
Oh yes, yes. Obviously, the generations of the millennials, that's people in my generation, and even many of the musically inclined Gen Zs, because they are online, they get to listen to hours of music streaming and all that, so they can really just dive deep and explore Fela's songs. They have that inkling. They know that this is being passed on because, truth be told, when the likes of Burna Boy, Whiskey, Davido, with their songs, charting African charts, even global charts, year after year, album after album, hit after hit. These artists are also millennials. So they saw Fela, they listened to Fela's music. Now Fela's music is what they are using to gain global resonance. So it means that the next generation of Nigerian Afrobeat artists, or whatever genre that might in the next 15, 20 years that might become the ink thing for Nigeria and the world, will also be influenced by this, let me just call it Fela's sound, or Fela's style, or Fela's creation. It will definitely be influenced because it is now tried, tested, and trusted.
That's quite encouraging to learn. Afro, let me come to you. You have lived the two generations. You have lived the generation of Fela, and you're living this generation of Afrobeat singers. For you, what would be the key differences between the two? And what do you wish the younger generation would imbibe from what Fela left?
Interesting. Like I always say the same thing, that the sooner we get back to a reality where, for example, in the UK, the average kids that form bands in school, the first songs they try out are Beatles classic songs, or the average college kids in the US, the first songs they try out are songs by the Rolling Stones and all that, and holding their guitars, pretending to be those same guys. One hopes that the next step up from this is that fear, there's always been a fear and dread of trying to play Fela's music, to cover Fela's music. There's always been a dread of that, maybe because of how powerful a figure he was, but I think this generation, the Burna Boys and co, they're going to break that down, and we might now get to the next point where there's a true reverence for Fela's music, and then preserving it by trying to cover it and not being afraid. For example, I think Burna Boy was the leader in this new movement because many would not know that his Burna Boy's granddad was Fela's first manager, Benson Idonije. He was Fela's first manager. Yeah. They actually met him when Fela was employed by then the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation. Benson Idonije was a producer, everything there. And he recorded some of the early Fela songs at the MBC studios, and then became Fela's first manager when they were recruiting the early band, recruiting all the Tony Allens, the Baba Ani, and all that, you know. And Benson Idonije's daughter is Burna Boy's mom. So that connection rubbed off on Burna Boy, and he was probably early in his career, he was probably one of the first to start using snippets of Fela songs. People didn't know why, but I think people now know better because, of course, his mom is also his manager, you know. So people now understand. And by the time people like Whiskey now did the famous Ojo Elegba, of course, Fela had referenced Ojo Elegba in many songs, about 4 songs, you know. So I think that now cemented that transition, that awareness to this generation about who Fela was, what his message was, and the need to reconnect back. So there will be more globally. And people feel globally, all those bands that existed will now think, aha, so we haven't been wasting our time for the past 10, 15 years playing Fela's music.
Thank you so much. So you heard Adegboyega Oyedele, a.k.a. AfroLogic. He is a renowned Afrobeat musical and cultural curator. You also heard earlier DW's Olisa Chukwumah joining us all the way from Lagos, Nigeria. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
Africa is changing. Don't get left behind. Tune in to Africa Link.
Fela Kuti's family received this posthumous award on behalf of the man whose legacy has lived on decades after his death through one sound, Afrobeat. To all Nigerians and Fela's family, we say a big congratulations.
Fela's impact is there. He doesn't need awards. So whether they are giving it to him now, whether they gave it to him then, it all does not matter. There's been a ton of musicians and composers who have lived and never got any awards, but their impact is still seen today. Mozart, Bach, these are people who, they were nothing like awards in their time, but we still sample their sounds still today. Till tomorrow, we'll continue to sample Fela's sounds. That's the kind of impact that he has. The things that he was singing about in 77 are the same things that we are facing today. And when we go through everything in our daily lives, we remember his song. So his impact is what is important. He's a phenomenal person. His impact will last for generations.
I think it is long overdue. That is one word for it. Albeit it's a good thing. It is a big win for Nigeria. Well, even though, you know, our other younger artists did not win anything this year, but, you know, this for us, for the whole Nigeria, because this is not just a Fela thing now, this is a win for the whole country.
Well, I would say I'm surprised because it's been long. Everybody has been hearing of Fela for a very long time, but he's getting the award now. I feel so proud of him, to be honest, and I'm happy. I think that's just it in one word. I'm really happy for him.
But what are your thoughts about Afrobeat sound across Africa and its future? Share those thoughts with us on DW Africa Facebook page. Listen on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube page so you never miss an episode. This show was co-produced and edited by Isaac Mugabi. I am Adwoa Tenkoramaa Domena. Many thanks for listening.
DW, made for minds.